Welcome back to the Seeing Red MMA podcast. I am your host, Dustin. UFC 301 had just ended merely about, I would say, roughly about an hour ago here, so plenty of time to digest the pay-per-view portion and the prelim portion of this card. But let's just dive right into it here. Alexandre Pantoja defeats Steve Erceg by unanimous decision to retain his flyweight belt. And now some people out there say that it was an extremely close fight. I am one of those people. It was very close. That deciding factor of what got Pantoja the win was definitely the fifth round. Erceg shooting that takedown and then getting reversed is what caused him to lose that fight. Looking back, he will realize that he will learn from those mistakes, and I think he will be better in the next fight. I think this isn't going to be the last time that they fight. There will definitely be a rematch sometime down the road if Pantoja can fend off these future contenders, but the night belongs to Pantoja. He did deserve the win. Even looking at the numbers here, if we look at the full fight, I just had an argument with my younger brother about this because he thought Erceg won, which, hey, if it wasn't for the control time in the fifth, yes, I would have gave it to Erceg if he just kept doing what he did, especially in the fourth round. Then, yes, Erceg would have won the fight. But looking at it here, the numbers, 143 total strikes for Pantoja, 129 total strikes for Erceg. So even though it may look like Erceg was landing more, Pantoja did outstrike him by more than about 14 strikes total, which is still very close. They threw almost the same amount of strikes with the same amount of landing percentage. They both landed 55% of their total strikes. Erceg 233 total strikes, Pantoja 262. Significant strikes, 125 for Pantoja, 111 for Erceg. So even the same percentage here, 52% going to Pantoja, 52% for Erceg. 242 significant strikes thrown for Pantoja, 212 for Erceg. So the numbers are fairly close. Pantoja does have a slight edge. That's where you kind of can go off damage in this case here. But if it wasn't for the 9 takedowns that Pantoja did gather over this 5-round contest, then that wouldn't be your deciding factor. But overall, it was basically just Pantoja getting grimy with it. Just once he got him on the ground or once he got him in a position to take him to the ground, he was extremely relentless, just kept going after it and did not really stop. He has a gas tank for days, which Erceg does as well too. I mean, in this fight here, we learned a lot about Pantoja's grittiness and how he's able just to survive storms. He's able to eat big shots and just keep moving forward. We learned a lot about Erceg. Number 10 in the world is not number 10. That I would say he's maybe like, I would like to see him against maybe like a Brandon Moreno type to see how good he really is, or even like a Roy Vell. But I think he's top 3 right now. I mean, we're probably going to end up getting Mokaev against Pantoja later in the year, which I am not too thrilled about, but whatever. We're living in the right now. We're living in the present. Erceg was thoroughly impressive. He's going to go back to the gym on Monday, or he's going to go rewatch the fight and realize that 5th round was the deciding factor in this fight and realize what he needs to do to tighten things up. And who knows? He tightens things up, maybe tightens other things up in the process. He might put Pantoja away in the next fight because he landed that hellacious elbow that opened up Pantoja's forehead, followed by the left hook that somehow Pantoja ate. But hey, Pantoja is known for having a great chin and just durability overall. Fantastic fight. I was not expecting the fight to be this good, but man, what a surprise. I was very happy with it. Speaking of very happy, this is a great segue. The King of Rio is back, guys. Jose Aldo wins his return fight by a 3-round unanimous decision. And honestly, it was kind of crazy to watch because Martinez is a dog. I mean, he's young. I know he's 30, which is a little old for that division, but compared to Aldo's 37, like, man, Aldo was definitely the faster guy out there. He was linear with his shots, just overall speed. That takedown he landed in the third. He even wobbled Martinez in the third as well, too. And if we had to say, I mean, who threw the better leg kicks? I'd say it's Aldo. Aldo threw the better leg kicks, which was one thing that I was kind of worried about. But, man, Aldo, you could throw him back into the mix. I know Merab is going to be getting the title shot here, whether if we like it or not. But after that, if O'Malley can get past Merab, maybe match Aldo up with like a Sandhagen, maybe a Cheeto rematch, maybe even a Corey fight. I don't know, but you can put him right back into the top 5, and I would not be mad. He looks as good as ever. I know this was his last fight on his UFC contract, so we'll see where he goes from here. But hey, I think honestly, if he was going to retire, he would have done it tonight in Rio. That makes the most sense. Do it in front of your hometown crowd. But hey, it doesn't seem like he's going to be retiring anytime soon. With that much gas in the tank, taking on a young guy like Martinez and handling him the way that he did, I think Aldo can make another run towards the title. Now, those other top 5 guys, even guys like Cheeto, different story. I think he gets through Cheeto like he did the first time they fought. Sandhagen, though, O'Malley, a Merab rematch, that's where things get interesting there. Even a Peter Yan rematch I wouldn't be mad at, but I'm going to throw this out there. The fight I would want to see right now, just as a fan of just explosive strikers, give me Jose Aldo versus Song Yadong, November of this year, Madison Square Garden. Tell me that's not a banger of a fight. Tell me that won't be heat. I think that's the fight to make. Song Yadong coming off the loss to Peter Yan. Jose Aldo coming off a win over number 12. Make that matchup. Winner moves on to the top 5. I think that's the fight to make. But, man, it is so good to see Aldo back. I felt like I was back in middle school and high school again, just watching prime Aldo with his speed, his athleticism, and just his reaction time. And even that takedown. I haven't seen many takedowns in Aldo's career, but that was a filthy one. Speaking also filthy, guess who did me dirty? Anthony Smith proved us all wrong. Plus 425 underdog got the first round submission. Guillotine choke over undefeated or former undefeated Vitor Petrino. And man, he turned back the clock here tonight as well too. I mean, those Anthony Smith and Jose Aldo, I mean, less so Aldo, but definitely Anthony Smith proved a lot of people wrong here tonight. I thought it was over for Anthony Smith. I thought he was done and retired. I thought if he loses this fight, it's over. Call it a career, become a commentator. But man, he may still have some gas in the tank. I don't know if it's just Petrino being 11-1 now and just being super green. They mentioned on the broadcast, Anthony Smith has more losses than Petrino has professional fights, which is crazy to say, but also those losses is experience. You fail or you learn. Looks like Anthony Smith in some of those losses may have learned something, and he got the job done. First round submission for Anthony Smith. Give him Poatan. I'm just kidding. Give him Dominic Reyes. Michel Pereira, I called this one. Michel Pereira did a backflip onto Ihor Potieria after dropping him in the first round and then proceeded to get a standing guillotine that left Ihor unconscious there. There was some debate whether if his knee when landed on Potieria's head was illegal during the backflip, but from what I heard on the broadcast, if the initial point of the knee lands on the chest, and then whatever follows after that, so like the lower part of his shin, the upper part of his shin, the initial impact was the chest. It was knee to chest, and then the leg kind of fell off to the side of the face of Potieria. That's legal. There's nothing illegal about that because the initial impact was to the chest. But guys, can we please get Pereira a top 10 opponent? Can we get him like a Joe Pyfer-esque kind of like trajectory here? Can we stop fucking around with these other middleweights that only have like our one-trick ponies? This guy's dropping people and then getting submissions. He did it in his last fight against Olejczyk. Let's get him in there against a top 10 guy. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to see that? This guy is pure entertainment. Like, I had a friend watch the fights with me tonight who doesn't really watch the fights, and I told him, like, this guy's wild. And he's like, okay, watches it, sees a backflip, and he just goes, what the hell? That's how you get new fans intrigued into the sport. They got to see some wild shit. Michel Pereira is wild shit. He does wild shit all the time. He's a moneymaker. You put him in a fight night main event against a top 10 middleweight, who doesn't want to see that? And you match him up correctly, too. I'm saying you give him like a, not Jared Cannonier, but maybe like a, I don't know, maybe like a Marvin Vettori-esque guy. Maybe you give him maybe even a Jack Hermanson, honestly. I mean, Jack Hermanson, in his last fight against Pfeiffer, stood on the feet quite a bit in that fight here. So, I mean, that might be a good fight for Pereira. It gives him the ability to explode and get a high-ranking guy out of there. Probably pretty early, too. So, I mean, Michel Pereira, the world is your oyster here at middleweight. You should have been at middleweight this whole time. You're fantastic. I love you. Paul Craig sucks. Yeah, Paul Craig sucks. Ciao Borralho gets a second-round KO against Paul Craig. Ciao Borralho was headhunting quite a bit in this fight here. I mean, I get it because, I mean, Paul Craig just, if history repeats itself, he's not a very threatening guy when he's just on the feet, which I can understand with a guy like Borralho, who's got good takedown defense and he's got good striking as well too, so he was able to be confident in his hands to let them go, which, I mean, even leading up to the knockout here, if we look at the numbers just on that fight alone, I mean, Ciao Borralho, 43 total strikes within 2 rounds to 22 for Paul Craig. And out of those 43 strikes, 36 of them were significant. So, I mean, he just picked him apart. And what I've noticed with Paul Craig is that once he's in there with heavy hitters, once he gets hit badly once, he kind of just doesn't know what to do. He almost like freezes up and then is just kind of like waiting to be finished, which is what I felt what happened here. Got tagged with the punch, kind of just backed up, was trying to survive, and then just got finished with that gnarly, I believe it was a straight left or left hook, whatever it was. I know Borralho was in the southpaw stance, but it was a crushing blow that sent Paul Craig down to the canvas there. I mean, what are we doing here with Paul Craig, guys? Like, I like the whole Scottish bit with painting your face, but if you're going to be that intense at the weigh-ins, if you're going to get in people's face, if you're going to paint your face, you can't be a guy who always pulls guard and then either you get a submission after getting beat up or you get knocked the fuck out. Like, we've seen it time and time again with Paul Craig. I mean, he's gotten knocked out at light heavyweight, at middleweight. Like, what's the plan here, man? Like, I don't see his career lasting much longer if it keeps going this way unless he makes some serious changes. So, Ciao Borralho, he called out Jared Cannonier. I like that fight. We know Jared Cannonier is fighting Nasruddin Imavov here soon, so see how that fight goes. Who knows? He might get the loser of that one if I had to guess. But here's an interesting fight. This was kind of controversial as well, too. Jack Shore took on Joanderson Brito, and Joanderson Brito was running away with this fight. I mean, he had 57 total strikes landed compared to Jack's 31, and out of that 57, 30 of them were significant, which Jack Shore's 24 out of 31 were significant. So, I mean, higher percentage, but lower output. That being said, his shin. Brito threw a leg kick. Jack went to check it. It's like the bone of the shin connected at the perfect spot on the shin of Jack Shore and just cut him open. And then he started leaking out of that shin. Like, it was a hole. It wasn't just like a cut. It was a hole in his leg. Ref calls a stop to the fight for a sec. Doctor checks it out. Literally fingers the hole in his shin to be like, yeah, that's not good. And then the fight gets called off, which I get in a medical standpoint. With a hole that big, you run the risk of infection, especially we know how, like, staff is kind of not super as of recent, but we've seen cards before where people have fought with staff. Not saying either of these guys did. Who knows if a fighter earlier on the card had staff and then it's already on the mat, then it gets in the hole, and then you're fucking infected. Who knows? I understand why they waived off the fight. And who knows, if I was the doctor or the ref, I may have called off the fight too, just because of the severity of the hole and how gross it looked. It honestly was pretty fucking disgusting. But it's the first time I've ever seen something like that. I mean, Jack Shore looked like he wanted to continue, which, I mean, you're a UFC fighter. I would expect you, just from a cut, or regardless of where it is, you would probably want to keep fighting. Your paycheck is on the line. But I definitely not a no contest. I mean, I've heard some people say no contest because it was waved off. But I mean, the cut was caused from an attack by Brito. So I mean, this doctor stoppage. Brito gets the win. Karolina Kowalkiewicz needs to retire. She just lost to a 22-year-old, which is not bad. I mean, she's young as shit. Yasmin Luciendo, she's very dynamic and honestly kind of fun to watch here. 91 total strikes. 83 of them were significant compared to Karolina's 47 total strikes. 43 of those were significant, so, I mean, not bad. 2 takedowns in that fight. Yeah, I mean, women's MMA, unanimous decision. She doesn't get finished on the ground. She's going to get beat up for 3 rounds, which is what happened. Maitabek Orobai, I'm butchering that name every time I see it. I don't care. Is good. He's really good, guys. But he needs more confidence in his hands. He was taking on Elvis Brenner here within the first round, and I believe it was like very early on in the first round, like in the first 30 seconds, tags him and rocks him and just goes straight for the takedown. This man has no confidence in his hands and is just a pure grappler. When he rocked Elvis Brenner multiple times, one in the first round, one in the second round, and just kept going back to the wrestling, which I understand if you just want to secure the win and you just want to keep your record alive. I get that. But, man, he had perfect opportunities to get him out there, which I understand maybe why he was a little bit hesitant to kind of stand there and bang with Elvis Brenner, because Elvis Brenner is a striker and is pretty devastating as well too. But, I mean, you obviously had slicker striking. Like, you obviously are able to tag him on the feet. Elvis Brenner was all loopy, and especially in the third round, was very tired. And speaking of the third round, that cage grab, that ref, hey, I like that ref. Cage grabbed, prevented the takedown, immediately took a point. Didn't stop the fight, though, just immediately took a point. Right then and there in the cage, took a point while they're still fighting against the fence. That's an OG ref. That is a dope ref. I like that guy. We need more refs like that who don't stop the action for fence grabs, who don't smack the hand 5 times before they even talk about taking a point, who pause the action just to 1 point. 1 point. Hey, call 1 point in the middle of them fighting. If he doesn't realize what he did was illegal, grabbing the fence, and he does it again, guess what? That's his fault. Somebody needs to get in this here and explain the rules better. I mean, you're fighting in the UFC. You should know the rules. But regardless of that point deduction, Orobai does get the unanimous decision. He's good, and he looks really good at lightweight. Another lightweight fight, Joaquim Silva versus Drakkar Klose. Drakkar Klose had me scared here a little bit, especially with how close this fight was. It was definitely the second round, I think, is what kind of secured him the win, just honestly holding him against the fence and just trying to initiate the clinch. But, I mean, Joaquim Silva, he proved that he's got some stones for hands. He hit so hard. He dropped Klose in the third round there, and they got wild. But as Klose got more tired, every time he threw, hand came down. Every time he threw, hand came down. Every time he kicked, hand came down. So, I mean, hey, it's something to work on. Nobody's perfect, but Drakkar Klose does get the unanimous decision. Here's a good guy. Here was my fight on the prelims that I was like, damn. Mauricio Rufy knocks out Jamie Malarkey in the first round at 4 minutes and 42 seconds, and it was violent. Mauricio Rufy is fun to watch. I mean, out of the 40 strikes he threw in the first round, landed 25 of them. All 25 of them were significant, and the way he was dropping them, and there were some times Malarkey would like throw back, and it looked like it may have tagged Rufy, but he would just turn his head with the punches and just slide right away. His reaction time is fantastic. He has a very fun style. I'm excited to see who he takes on next, where his trajectory goes. Jamie Malarkey, I think it's time to hang it up, bud. Diana Barbosa, Ernesta Kirkatsi, who gives a fuck. Islam Bonfim versus Vince Pichel. Bonfim just walked through Vince Pichel. Like, this was Not even a close fight, like 112 strikes to 64. Wow, my light just died. This is great. So we'll kind of wrap this up here. Ismael Bonfim gets the win, unanimous decision over 3 rounds. One takedown, 111 significant strikes. Makes sense when you're a minus 535 favorite. Opening fight on the entire card, Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borjas. My fiance told me that Kevin Borjas' name in Spanish translates to black cock, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't think it means the same thing as what we think, but pretty cool. Alessandro Costa basically lands one leg kick in the second round and immediately shuts off Kevin Borjas' legs and just follows him to the ground and gets the TKO. Good win. Now he's 2-2 in the UFC. He really needed that. That's pretty much it for me, guys. UFC 301, Pantoja is still your flyweight champion. Jose Aldo turned back time along with Anthony Smith. Michel Pereira breakdances over Ihor Potieria, and Paul Craig needs to retire. Those are my main points of this card here. And honestly, 301, not a bad card. It was advertised. People thought of it as kind of a shittier card. It wasn't advertised well, is what I mean. And I liked it. I had fun watching it. I thought it was a really good pay-per-view. I wish my buddy didn't pay for the pay-per-view and I could have just hooked it up for him, if you know what I mean, and I know you do. But that is it. UFC 301 is in the books. UFC 302 is next up. June 1st, we got Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. Tune in for that episode. Thank you again for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like, subscribe. If you want to, leave a comment. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at SeeingRedMMA. Other than that, you guys have yourself a great rest of your day. And until next time, see ya.